Tens of thousands of protesters gathered in the Bulgarian capital Sofia to voice their objection to the government's budget draft for next year in what turned out to be the biggest protest in the country in decades. The demonstration was dominated by young people and was planned to be peaceful in nature. Protesters chanted resignation as they demanded the incumbent coalition, led by the Citizens for European Development of Bulgaria party, known as GERB, to revise the draft or step down. Protesters also called for the prosecution of two key players in the ruling coalition, GERB leader Boyko Borisov and the Movement for Rights and Freedoms leader Delian Pivsky. But a small group of masked people incited chaos outside the headquarters of those parties, throwing chairs at the buildings and police officers guarding them, as well as glass bottles. Footage showed clashes between the masked individuals and police forces, with garbage dumpsters being set on fire and police vehicles vandalized as chaos quickly unraveled. Protesters say those who incited violence were not part of the rallies, accusing them of being hired to provoke and undermine the demonstrations. On the 27th of November, the government announced it was withdrawing its controversial budget plan, which aimed to steeply increase taxes following domestic pressure and a night of protests. Borisov later rescinded the withdrawal, instead promising changes to the draft, which he said would be implemented by the first or second parliamentary vote, prompting the organization of a second rally. Protesters are worried the proposed budget, along with major imminent shifts, like Bulgaria's adoption of the euro in January, could lead to economic instability.
In a response to Belgium's Prime Minister Bart de Wever, EU High Representative Kaja Kallas said approving a reparations loan for Ukraine gives the European Union greater leverage at the negotiating table to end Russia's war. De Wever had previously warned that the proposal risked derailing the diplomatic process. Kallas, however, insisted that the approval of the reparations loan sends three messages. To Ukraine, she argued it would show them that the EU is there to help defend themselves. Secondly, it would send a message to Moscow that they can't outlast the EU. And finally, it would prove to the US that the EU is taking strong and credible steps. Under the scheme, the bloc would channel the frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. Kyiv would only be asked to repay the loan if Moscow agreed to compensate for the damages. However, Belgium's Prime Minister Bart de Wever has repeatedly opposed the proposal. He claims it could pose a risk to Belgium, where the assets are stored. He also said it could act as an obstacle to the White House trying to reach a deal between Ukraine and Russia.
The president of the International Criminal Court said during the institution's annual meeting on Monday that it won't bow to pressure from either the US or Russia. 9 members of its staff, including 6 judges and the court's chief prosecutor, have been sanctioned by US President Donald Trump for pursuing investigations into US and Israeli officials, while Moscow has issued warrants for ICC staff in response to an arrest warrant for President Vladimir Putin over the war in Ukraine. The sanctions have taken their toll on the court's work, affecting a wide range of investigations at a time when it's already struggling with growing demands on its resources.
Greek farmers are escalating their protest against the government, demanding immediate payments of subsidies from OPEKIPI, the agency responsible for distributing EU agricultural subsidies, and protesting the increased production cost alongside low prices of their products. The blockade comes after several people were arrested last week in the spiraling farm fraud case that revealed millions of euros were paid in illegal subsidies by OPEKIPI, a scandal that has provoked farmers and brought extra scrutiny to subsidy payments in Greece. On Sunday, major incidents were reported in central Greece, specifically in the Thessaly region, where farmers managed to break through police blockades and block the critical Athens-Thessaloniki National Highway with tractors. According to an announcement by the Greek National Police, 2 police officers were also injured and 3 arrests were made. With no assurances or statement from the government, The protests are expected to spread across Greece until the 5th of December, with more road blockades, a tactic frequently used by farmers to put pressure on the authorities. Chancellor Friedrich Merz welcomed Prime Minister Donald Tusk for the 17th German-Polish government talks in Berlin on Monday. The meeting comes after EU foreign and defense ministers met in Brussels and as Poland seeks to deter Moscow's recent provocations. Warsaw wants to foster stronger relations with Berlin, but there is also mistrust. However, Chancellor Merz emphasized the importance of solidarity.
Gerade in diesen Zeiten, in denen die Einheit Europas so unter Druck steht, dürfen wir uns nicht auseinanderdividieren lassen. Wir müssen und wir werden zusammenstehen.
But Poland expert Dr. Kai Olaf Lang describes German-Polish relations as paradoxical.
Kann denn das Treffen zwischen Donald Tusk und Friedrich Merz an diesem Misstrauen etwas ändern?
Es gab eben auch innenpolitische Bremsfaktoren, sodass man aus deutscher Sicht, glaube ich, das Gefühl hatte, Polen macht eine Deutschlandpolitik mit angezogener Handbremse.
According to Dr. Lang, Poland sees itself as the regional power in Eastern and Central Europe and wants to be treated as such.
Zabrało mi trochę czasu przez ostatnie lata, aby przekonać naszych niemieckich partnerów do tego, aby bezpieczeństwo w tej części Europy traktować jako wspólne zadanie.
As the government in Warsaw seeks more direct cooperation on security issues, the reality on the ground seems to be different.
In Polen wiederum hat sich der Eindruck vertieft, Deutschland habe zwar eine Rhetorik der Einbindung und der Aufwertung Polens, aber wenn es dann wirklich drauf ankomme, dann werde Polen eben nicht berücksichtigt.
Can this paradoxical situation develop into a strong German-Polish security partnership in the future?
Laut dem deutsch-polnischen Barometer zeigt nur ein Drittel der Polen Sympathie für seine Nachbarn in Deutschland. Und das dürfte nicht nur an den Reparationsforderungen liegen. Polen will mehr Mitspracherecht in Sicherheitsfragen. Zuletzt wurde der US-Ukraine-Friedensplan über die Köpfe der Polen hinweg diskutiert, inklusive des Punktes 9 mit der Stationierung europäischer Kampfjets auf polnischem Gebiet. Heute macht der polnische Ministerpräsident Donald Tusk deutlich, Entscheidungen über die Sicherheit in Europa dürfen nicht über Polen hinweg entschieden werden. Und der deutsche Bundeskanzler Friedrich Merz muss nun beweisen, dass er Polen als strategischen Sicherheitspartner ernst nimmt. Diana Resnick aus Berlin für Euronews.
The White House said on Monday that a Navy admiral acted within his authority and the law when he ordered a second follow-up strike on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean Sea in September. According to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, Defense Secretary Exeth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Leavitt, in her comments to reporters, did not dispute a Washington Post report that there were survivors after the initial strike. Her explanation came after the reports detailing the attack sparked controversy and President Donald Trump said he wouldn't have wanted a second strike when asked about the incident. The controversial September strike was one in a series carried out by the U.S. military in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific Ocean as Trump ordered the buildup of a fleet of warships near Venezuela, including the largest U.S. aircraft carrier. More than 80 people have been killed in the strikes that Washington says targets drug cartels.
The long-lost painting by 17th century Flemish artist Peter Paul Rubens has sold at auction for €2.3 million in Versailles. The painting, which was hidden for more than 4 centuries, was recently found in a private townhouse in Paris. It was part of a French collection and was initially thought to be from one of the many Rubens workshops that existed at the time.
Qui n'a pas changé de main depuis 150 ans, totalement inconnu de la critique et du public depuis 1625, date de sa disparition, que nous connaissons, dont nous connaissions l'existence par une gravure portant la signature du peintre. et qui réapparaît pour vous à Versailles chez Maître Rosna.
The auction house said the painting's authenticity was confirmed after scientific analysis. A microscopic examination of the paint layers revealed not only white, black and red pigments in the areas representing human skin, but also blue and green, which Rubens typically used.
So the winter wreck is made of rock crystal. It would have been an extremely difficult job, first of all, to find such a clear specimen of rock crystal, but then also carve it in such a difficult shape, the ovoid shape, and also engrave with the beautiful snowflake design from the inside without rock crystal cracking. It must have been a really, really challenging job. We know exactly how much it cost. The price was 24,600 rubles. It was the most expensive item Fabergé created at the time in 1913. And just for comparison, to understand how much money it was, an average worker in Moscow would get 30 rubles a month. So this was an incredibly high amount. And on Tuesday, we are going to offer it for sale again, and we expect it to sell in excess of £20 million.